This is with regard to parenting time for Mr. Pruitt. I have received a further report from the guardian ad litem dated January 20th. Petitioner Jessica Pruitt, she appears in person, and by counsel Michelle Rusin. The respondent Eric Pruitt appears here in person, or appears by counsel John Butler. This matter comes on as a further status today with regard to parenting time. I have received a further report from the guardian ad litem dated January 27th, 2012. I've reviewed that. I'm going to place that in the order that file. It appears we are at an impasse. If either party want to address the issues the guardian ad litem has raised.
Well, I can tell you this. My client was thrilled with the report. He is going through and getting the evaluation done. He looks at it as a positive thing and wants to get the evaluation done. The best way I can describe Mr. Pruitt is that there's all of us here, and Mr. Pruitt is over here. He's not dangerous, he's odd. And so he looks at things through a glass that the rest of us wouldn't look through. But he sees it as positive. He's currently working to rent a place, he says in the Pleasant County area. And I know he's talked to several people. I don't know how effective he will be. He can work through kids first. So that's where we're at from his perspective. But it really took that letter from the guardian ad litem to kind of, I don't know, get it to sink in. That and, while it's attorney-client privilege, several rather caustic emails from me to basically tell him that I was tired of his, if you'll forgive the expression, crap, of his railing at society, at the court system. So we would have that accomplished, and we would go, I would share that with council, and we would get that accomplished.
So we believe the mental health evaluation is in Parkersburg?
Yes. He said it was an that whoever it was he talked to, that it was somehow connected to Kids First, which didn't make any sense to me, but there's a lot of stuff he tells me that I'm not sure I always understand because it's his viewpoint of the world, and again, a lot of the things that he looks at is his viewpoint of the world, and it doesn't always make sense, but it is his viewpoint. He's trying. He's trying. I will say this. I don't. I know counsel has a different opinion on in representing her client, but I have listened to these people bicker and argue by their emails and their back and forth. And she threatened and our counsel forwarded to me that she was going to file a DV over Christmas, and we had no visitation because we had no supervising third party and all that, because she was felt threatened by his emails. And I've read most of his emails, and I will say this. These two people will never be able to communicate effectively because he likes to talk and say a lot of things. And if you want to, you can interpret those as...
I've got that Justin Bieber, please believe it. 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 I've got that Justin Bieber, please believe it.
Just a little bit. See, I give you faith till the down and I go to bed. Keep it moving.
Justin Bieber, please believe it. I got that 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 Justin Bieber, please believe it.
At that point, I think family courts have to shadow abuse and neglect procedures or that type of consideration is what a family court has to undergo. Certainly, Mr. Pruitt has shown his actions haven't matched his words at times, and he hasn't shown up for hearings. He has shown an instability, at least in far as his living conditions, because we do have in the file he lived in Pittsburgh, and then he was in Grafton or maybe Morgantown. At one point was undergoing mental health treatment, I believe, and that might have been prior to your representation.
nobody by my side. I need you right now. So don't let me, don't let me, don't let me down. Think I'm losing my mind now. It's in my head. Darling, I hope that you'll be here when I need you the most. Don't let me, don't let me, don't let me down. Don't let me down.
That he have such an evaluation. I'm very interested that he obtain a stable place to live and exhibit a stable lifestyle. That has been the really sticker in this case. I think we can accommodate, and the guardian ad litem basically puts it on Mr. Pruitt to come up with some alternative to Kids First. I'm reading between the lines here. I don't think it's appropriate for a court to read between the lines of Mr. Ellison's report, that there may be a lot more that Mr. Ellison and Kids First wants to report about Mr. Pruitt, but hasn't. That may come out in another hearing. As the orders exist right now, Mrs. Pruitt is free to set up something that she sees fit at this point. But like I say, the proof will be in Mr. Pruitt's what Mr. Pruitt actually does at this point.
Well, I think certainly I understand why Ms. Pruitt doesn't want to supervise, and in truth, I think
that would be good for.
I think in the totality of the circumstances, all it does, because of his odd nature, I think it would draw him away from spending time with the child, and it would focus him on his and you don't want to call it communication, his ranting toward her, and that would really take him away from spending. Every time they communicate, whether it be by email or anything else. So, in the best interest of the visitation, it needs to be somewhere else where she's not there. It just is, and I don't see it as rising level of domestic violence. I just see it takes away from productive visitation.
Well, I know I was looking for the one email or the text that he sent. It concerned me. It wasn't just her. It would concern me. It was pretty threatening, but I can't find it right now.
Christmas. I
Yeah,
probably have it on my
no, the one
phone.
that we looked at in November when I told you to go get a DVD order,
Yeah,
but
that's
I don't know exactly what it was. But
He was
it's
wishing me dead because I was trying to arrange for alternative visitation for Christmas, and the next day that started, I had to call the police. I called because I thought he was in Parkersburg at the time. He told me he already had a place, and I saw you the very next day.
I told him to quit emailing you.
I mean, he basically said I had an illusion of safety through my social network, and I took that as threatening.
You see, he just talks and talks and talks, and the emails he sends to me are just volumes of stuff.
I understand, but courts also we are affected by other cases and outside events. And while I certainly have had 10 times more mothers abuse their children than fathers. We had a father kill his kids out in
Oh, I know.
Washington on a supervised visitation.
Yes.
I know.
You know, Washington, which is always is a more progressive state than West Virginia, evidently has social workers.
Nobody by my side. I need you right now. So don't let me down. Think I'm losing my
We'll take children to a
Parents
parents'
home.
home, and children ended up dead.
I know. I read about it.
And that was a father who was on national TV proclaiming that he would never hurt his wife and his kids.
Yeah.
Seemingly clean cut. You know, so oftentimes courts are frustratingly conservative because we feel like if we're going to make a mistake, we'd rather make it a mistake where for the safety of the child. So it takes a person in Mr. Pruitt's position to prove himself at this point. He says, yes, why should I prove himself? Well, it takes more than a sex act to be a father.
In his defense, I wasn't there aggravating them. I waited for the DV. It didn't arrive. I did not aggravate Shelley about the visitation.
No, he hasn't.
Because quite frankly, I knew he was over the top. I knew he was ranting over the holidays, and
I always feel like one of the responsible steps that a party takes is getting counsel. And
nobody by my side. I need you right now. So don't let me down. Think I'm losing my mind now. It's in my head. Darling, I hope that you'll be here when I need you the most. Don't let me
Mrs. Pruitt, I understand, you have to take off work for these hearings and you've had to hire an attorney, but, for the sake of your child, we need to take every step that we can. Like I say, we didn't put you in this position. You married Mr. Pruitt, to put it crassly, and now your child is owed every chance to have two parents. If that doesn't happen, well, then it won't be the court's fault or your fault. It'll be Mr. Pruitt's fault. That's what it comes down to. It may involve you having even a few more short hearings before we get to a conclusion in this matter. Hopefully, it's a conclusion that Mr. Pruitt rises to the occasion.
I'm not available any in April. I know that sounds extreme, but I have a big trial and then we're going on a trip. So.
Okay. All right.
Which this is mid-February, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Really, I think if we come back in early May, then maybe.
Early May will probably be about right for a psychological
I
battle.
say we get the evaluation done, and then we see if we can't get the kids' first supervised visits, and by the time we get some of them under our belts, May would be appropriate anyway.
Yeah. All right. If you want to do today's order, Mr. Butler, that way you'll have control over how quick the hearing gets back.
Okay.
All right.
I will.
Thank you.